All right, we are back. We are here with an amazing guest. We just had Victor from Synthesia, another amazing AI founder. We're now here with Nikola from PolyAI. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining me.
I'm good. I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Why don't you just give a quick introduction for those who haven't heard? What is PolyAI?
PolyAI builds voice agents and AI agents for customer service, where we help large enterprises become the best version of themselves in every customer conversation. So we work with the likes of Marriott, Caesars, think like companies like UniCredit, Allstate, PG&E, really large companies with thousands and thousands of agents. We help them pick up any phone call, chat interaction any time of day or night and just be that best version of themselves.
And you are currently targeting, like the companies that you've mentioned, very large enterprises. How has that process been of kind of getting your foot into the door and selling innovative new technologies to quite old-fashioned or traditional industries?
Oh yeah, it's hard. Look, and I think that we started a few years back, straight out of our PhDs at Cambridge, where really it felt like we were selling science fiction. Like you can imagine the reaction of someone in a context of where, with a kid coming and saying, "Well, we're going to automate. We can automate half. We can automate 90%." Or what are you on about, right? So that was very different, and we really had to sell the dream and look for those like extreme early adopters, really innovative people. I think the ChatGPT moment changed it all, where now people are kind of like factoring in and everyone's thinking about where we will be in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Often, I think, it's hard to know whether you're overshooting or not, but there's a lot of optimism and excitement now. So you get more opportunities to prove out something that may be an outright ridiculous or at least a very ambitious idea. So yeah, winning the first few is really, really, really hard, right? You need to find the right person and something they really care about. What propelled us to fame, and I think of all of our competitors, we're known as like the premium, most branded option, the most expensive one, right? We've always been fairly unapologetic about that. And the thing that's really interesting is you go and you say that you got to have something people really want. So when we started working with Caesars, that I think was one of the key moments, because Caesars never automated any customer experience, right? They refused it. They were famous for saying no to it. And, we got the angle of like, we'll have exactly the kinds of voices you want. Hell, we'll have a carousel, 10 different ones. They'll sound exactly the way you want them to. And the moment they decide to work with you, that goes from being something that companies that don't really care about their customers do to save money, into something that the companies that care most about their customers invest in to have an even better experience, right? So when you flip the script like that, then you get known for it, and then the rest follows.
Super interesting. So I guess, yeah, the sell is not only you automating things, but you're actually improving the quality of the customer experience. You're improving customer outcomes, and it's no longer just about automation, reducing costs. It's about making the customer experience better.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like first and foremost, you improve customer experience, you grow revenue, you never miss revenue generating calls, and then you put these systems in places where they can do things better than humans. And what we found is that there is a surprising number of use cases already where we're able to like seriously outperform a human contact center. So believe it or not, like in cases where people talk about bereavement and inheritance, where a loved one passed away, we found that we universally get better CSAT scores than humans, because it's actually easier to speak to someone who is not a human without invoking that kind of like emotional backdrop of like you lost a loved one, you have to talk, and then they don't know how to respond. Do they ask you about them, or do they just kind of like dodge the topic and keep conversation going? Of course, with AI, it's just transactional, and that just makes it better. So you have a better experience.
That's so interesting. Yeah. It's like there's these real instances where actually talking to an AI is actually preferable to talking to a real person because of the emotional weight or baggage. That's so interesting.
Well, and people talk about like preference for. There was a generation of companies, and there still are those that push chat with that kind of like premise of like Gen Z. They don't want to pick up the phone, and well, no one really wants to pick the phone when their internet doesn't work or something bad happened with a service or something. Like you don't want to have that interaction to begin with, because you don't want to have that problem to begin with.
Yeah.
But once you do, people want live connectivity with the company that can help them, right? And their voice still trumps everything and everyone for every age group, right?
Amazing. That's so interesting. I also wanted to ask about talking about, the early days of selling to enterprises before the ChatGPT moment. Have you seen a real noticeable change in the appetite and demand from enterprises for this? When you look at your ICPs, whether they're like a head of innovation or head of customer success and services, Are you seeing that are they feeling the pressure to adopt AI solutions in a way that is only going up?
Extremely. I mean, I think what I'm sure you will have heard from others is this is a rare time where enterprises are moving faster than kind of like SMB in that part of the market because everyone's aware of this kind of like avalanche of things coming, so they want to get ahead of others. I think it's also the past experience of some companies being fast and most of them being quite slow with cloud adoption, and then kind of like paying for the non-accumulated interest on innovation that they could have had, whereas their competitors might have realized it through using cloud products and everything that came with it. Uh, Everyone's very keen to not be that guy who didn't adopt cloud early enough and is still going through a cloud transition 10 years later. So there's almost like, a posture which is like by default, you must and you will, right? The question then just becomes like, from whom, right? And there, what we've seen previously, and we see a bit less of now, is the kind of like, the flight to safety of hyperscalers and very large companies that are able to, you don't get fired for buying IBM, right?
Yeah.
Or Google or Microsoft, etc., right? There is still quite a lot of that, like these execs and others will still, largely look to cover their ass when making large purchases. And the larger they are, the more they will hedge. But I think, it's also recognized in AI that those guys are not the ones that have like the high-end products, the ability to deliver. And because of that, I think we see an increased openness to working with, you know, large startups that have kind of like made it, companies at our stage, right?
And is that different when you speak to US companies versus European companies? Is there a greater appetite to try these tools out in US companies?
Yeah, I think, this whole like European and like, what are we doing wrong? I think we often ask ourselves in the context of like why America is doing better. And my only answer, and look, we're 82% American revenue, right? America is
Yeah, wow.
faster.
Yeah.
Like there are cultural things that have to do with Americans being, bold, a bit more empowered at the organizational level to make standalone decisions, try it out for a year and move away. There's definitely a bit less of that consensus decision making in America, but it's also just a much bigger market and it's a much richer market than us, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So as we build European companies, it's actually immaterial, right? Like we're on the same side. We're selling to American companies. That's going to be a home market, as will be Europe, right? And depending on what you have and how well it suits the needs, and hell, it might be the difference between you hiring a phenomenal French seller who, knocks back 5 enterprises and gives you the case studies to get another 10 in France, or maybe you won't. You probably won't, right? Unless you're French, then you're probably a bit more likely to do it. We're just like many and we're different, right? We're a continent with rich history, and that makes it a bit harder for some of these things to um, resonate as quickly as they do in America. So however you flip it, America's the largest market. You're going to have to do America well. So I think you just do it all right.
And how are you thinking about building a footprint in America?
We are predominantly American, right? Most of my
Yeah.
execs are in the US. I'm there half the time. So I never built it as a company that had, say, the first 10 British logos and then like expanded to America by hiring someone, etc. I've just been working ever since we had our first clients, probably about 4 years ago. I work till 2 a.m. daily. I'm effectively in America. Like where I am, people don't really know, right? You set up camera lighting, well, they can't really tell. I don't know if it's day or night where you are right now, right?
Yeah.
So with that, just go and do work. It doesn't matter where you are, right? You have all you need to succeed in London or in America or like wherever. You're just gonna have to do a lot of work. And that's
Yeah.
if you're in America or if you're here.
Yeah, yeah. No, 100% very true. And I want to touch on your revenue. You said 82% is coming from the US. You've seen amazing revenue growth over the last few years. I saw a post saying that you're on track to be at 50 million ARR at the end of this year. Is that right? Are you on track to hit that milestone?
Yep, absolutely.
That's amazing. And where are you, I guess, like where are you seeing that come from predominantly? Is it large enterprise deals, or are you seeing a combination of both large enterprise deals, but also some smaller players with a wider range, or where's it coming from?
Look, it's a very interesting question. I'm a nerd. I look at like, splices of like segments, verticals, everything. It works everywhere. That's actually the hardest thing about running a company like this, right? Where you could scale an SMB proposition, you could do upper mid market, lower enterprise, strategic enterprise. We're well known for the kind of like strategic enterprise rollouts. We work with the likes of FedEx, we work with Unicredit, with PG&E, the largest utility company in America. So those we do really well, and it's really worth doing that kind of like forward deployed model where,
Yeah.
your teams live and breathe PG&E or FedEx, etc., to make sure that they, and I think we're the only one of our competitors that currently has systems that do the work of at least 1,000 full-time employees on behalf of a single enterprise, right? So I think that to me was, I've been to contact centers with 1,000 people, and it takes a few truckloads of food to bring lunch over for those people, right? So now if you think there's like a server humming and it does that work, like that to me is like, that's real. That's,
Yeah.
we get hype. Like, sure, there's some hype, and we can talk about whether NVIDIA is priced right or not, like whatever. Like that thing doing the work of 1,000 people, that's really real. So I love that segment, but it's equally true. I think we have something like 3,000 different restaurants and pubs using us to be like the kind of like client-facing phone line for that. It works.
3,000, did you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. No,
And,
like some of the biggest. Yeah.
and yeah, wow, that's amazing. Gosh, that's a huge number of people. I can't. Do you have any data about the number of people who are speaking to your agents on a daily or weekly or yearly basis?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like at the moment, I think we're on track for like that number. And it's always hard to identify and track and repeat callers and stuff like that. But, I think well over 100 million people speak to us every year, right? And that's way more calls than that, because many of them are like repeat calls, and it could be higher. I just can't, there's like enterprise safety data and stuff where I don't
Of course.
get to look at it for every client in the right way.
But it's in that scale of things. That's phenomenal.
I remember 2 years ago, we crossed kind of like the call count that was like the British population at the time, so like 69 million.
Yeah.
So the next one was the US population. I think we're right about that. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to ask, you said that there's a lot of hype in the market at the moment. You raised, I think, a 500 million valuation in your Series C over a year ago. I think it was May 2024. Things at the moment are frothy, right? It's a crazy market. Valuations are sky high. Everybody's looking to get access, not just to category leaders, but categories in general. You've seen amazing success, right? You've grown at a time when the market is also really popping off. Has that changed about the way that you're thinking about fundraising? Maybe, thinking about raising more money sooner than you had anticipated to try and hire the top talent as talent becomes more competitive, give you opportunities to do secondaries. Has it changed the way that you're thinking about fundraising?
Well, it hasn't really changed it. I think, frankly, I think I've been very fortunate in that AI has always been hot. I think previously it might have not been available to all the people, but if you came out of a strong research group and wanted to raise money, it was always there, right?
Yeah.
So like the exact multiple is less relevant, but yeah, it's getting hotter and hotter. We're doing something now. I can't share all the details now, but expect to hear something soon. But yeah, no, it's very hot right now.
Amazing. Okay, so it sounds like something's going on in the background, but nothing you can share. Amazing, very cool. And other than the thing cooking in the background, like what else are you working on? Like what is the top priority for you at the moment when you get up? Like what is the thing that you're looking to achieve either in the next few days, weeks, months?
Man, it's so exciting. So I think, for us, like the real suite of things around the agent and stuff, we have clients where we do like 90% of their like calls or like text interactions automatically. Like what I'm really kind of like obsessed by is this notion of what will a contact center look like at scale in like 3 years from now. And you know what? It's probably like a tenth, or at least at most 1/5 of the people. Half of them are going to be earning way more. I think that we get people promoted. We track this religiously internally. Like, over half of our deployments have led to a promotion. I think a quarter have led to a double promotion over the past years. So like, I think it's, the contact center is this like often forgotten, often neglected, often abused part of the company that doesn't get the credit for like keeping the whole thing up and running, right? And I think as they get the right tools, they really become the central point. They turn from a contact center to a command center where these AI agents are now doing all the work, right? And they're there sitting like air traffic control saying, okay, like the number of calls to Newcastle about people being overcharged have skyrocketed by like a factor of 2,000. We have an ops issue there. And like this data has always been there. It's just been impossible to access it with kind of like distributed human agents. So now that you have AI doing it, you're able to just monetize. Most of the time when we automate, think like at least 2/3 of the calls, inevitably the next piece of work becomes sales, right? Like one of our top champions has recently moved from kind of like contact center head to like sales head there, right? And that's not something that was really written in the stars for a lot of these people, because now it's like, okay, When the call's done, I'm going to program this thing to see how I can generate leads, upsell things, suggest new products, test interest for new products. And like, guess what? That person running that is now in a position to do it way better than some, head of sales with 10 people, right? So the world's going to change in a very massive way. And the people who've been learning how to do it for a year or two now are now worth a lot more than the people who've not been doing it for 2 years.
That's so interesting. So it's people who made the decision to bring on, PolyAI as a provider. You're seeing their careers take a different trajectory because of the impact that your product is having.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they're now like, they've been given they have an infinite workforce that is really high quality at their fingertips, and they can do whatever, right? So they are no longer just there to hire just enough people for the whole thing to not collapse. They're now there asking questions of the org, like, what else do you want me to do? You want me to sell? You want me to upsell? You want me to, like fill out that CRM? You want me to fix up that backend data that's always been broken? Well, let me call everyone and figure it out. Now you can. Again, there's a limiter on just like how many initiatives you can be running, but you can do a whole lot more.
Yeah, when you think about the technology and where it's at today, how good do you think it is relative to how good it could get?
I don't think there's a limit on it, right? I think we're far from like the best that it can be, but just in terms of like say conversational quality and stuff, we're like pretty much the human level. The limit is not hallucinations. Hallucinations are not like a real thing. There's just bad context that you've not fed into the application, right? And then past that, it's really just like what can you think of doing and trying it out, right? And does it make sense? And the other limiter, of course, is your enterprise architecture. Your integrations, availability of things like MCP servers for your agents to hook into. We see a huge wave of investment in companies large and small into getting ready for that future. I mean, that future is already here. So, there is a backlog. There are limits on old systems that will continue to exist and be there, especially in mission critical areas. One reason that say airlines have always been hard is that, you often see two screens, and the other one is that like green screen with like something that's probably been running before you and I were born, right? And maybe much longer than that, actually. So, those things are limiters to some of this technology changing the world. But I think even there, I think a lot of innovation will come from computer use and other things where we'll just be able to, like, again, punch through those things with the power of AI.
And when you think about the future of PolyAI, are you starting to think or have dreams of other use cases for this type of technology? Or are you thinking the whole customer experience market is so massive that we just need to go deeper and deeper into this technology and this market, and this is where we build a multi-billion dollar company?
It's funny, people like I'm not a contact center guy, right? I never really was. Our previous company was acquired by Apple to make Siri more conversational, and before that I was a machine learning researcher, right? So to me, the reason I committed PolyAI to doing a lot of the customer experience stuff is that it is the largest thing addressable by a company that doesn't have its own hardware, right? And now that we have that volume of data, we're not maybe a great power yet, but we're a regional power. We're serious, right? We have an amount of data, people, models, everything that is putting us in a position to just own part of that, like communication. It is conversations wherever they're happening, and you'll be speaking to your hardware, you'll be speaking to your software, you'll be speaking to companies and enterprises. That's kind of like where we're focused now. But 40% of the interactions that we power have something to do with general service provision and revenue, be they like appointment making or recruitment or outbound sales, where it's like legally allowed, right? So when you do those things, you're really helping companies make money. And, a dollar earned is a lot more enticing to a lot of buyers than a dollar saved. So that's growing a lot faster, right? And then, I think that there's like a much deeper integration with a lot of verticals where, the limit again is just like the ecosystem. And, we like in the last year, we've seen our healthcare revenue nearly 10x.
Wow.
Like it went from being nothing to being close to number one vertical, and almost definitely by the end of this year, it will be the number one vertical, right? And if it continues at that rate, it's going to be more than half our revenue by kind of like this time next year, maybe even sooner. So there are pockets of, and that's also surprising, kind of like what we said about enterprise being usually slower but faster now. Now we see healthcare just ripping our hand out with the level of interest we're seeing there. So, you kind of follow the market, and again, the real limit is just like how many things we can do at once, because both the kind of like model capabilities and the interest from the market is such that, you you can do whatever and it's going to be like fairly successful.
No, that's super interesting to see that healthcare's being the early adopter and driving that change in such a unusual outcome. This is not what people would have predicted 5 years ago, I don't think.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing, to be optimistic about, because it will like mean that we eventually get a lot better at it, and then we live in that land of abundance where at least healthcare will be like, even if we're on UVI, maybe we'll have like far better healthcare universally, right?
Yeah, amazing. Well, look, we're out of time. But look, thank you so much for joining me. I love chatting. I'm a huge fan of what you're building, and I'm going to be following your journey on. And whenever you've got something to announce, just let me know, because I'd love to talk to you about it when the time is right.
Yeah, we'll do. And thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Lovely. Right, let's speak soon. Bye-bye.